Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and the witches have caused some controversy in a certain group. I'm going to break all this down as well as give you a quick review of the film. Look, I'm a huge fan of Robert Zemeckis. I love his earlier work, from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Romancing the Stone, Back to the Future, Contact, such a wonderful film, Forrest Gump, Death Becomes Her. I even love What Lies Beneath. Great performance from Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer. And then, his filmography gets a little strange, right? He did Beowulf and The Polar Express and A Christmas Carol, and he got sort of lost in those dead-eyed CGI movies. And so I lost his way, I thought. And then he finally came back and made Flight, and then The Walk, and then, what was it? That's how much I remembered. Allied, right. And then he made Welcome to Marwen with Steve Carell. Was such a weird movie. And so now he's come out with The Witches. And I thought, okay, well, this could be a return to sort of a good live-action family fare. He's got some CGI in it with the mice, and Anne Hathaway looks like it's going to do a fun big role. I like the rest of the supporting cast. And it's written by Kenya Barris from Blackish and Guillermo del Toro. A Guillermo del Toro / Robert Zemeckis family film, sign me up. I was excited to watch this with my kids. And fair enough, my kids, they enjoyed it. They forgot about it pretty quick, but they had fun watching it. But they're pretty easy critics these days with sort of updated kids movies. And it was harmless. At the same time, I didn't really love it. It was tonally just so weird. It feels like two completely different movies. Chris Rock as the narrator threw me off, and the movie itself is just plain weird. But I don't want to get into spoilers of it all. I want to talk about this controversy first. But overall, the film is kind of a letdown. It's not a very good family film. It's not one I want to rush to watch again. It just feels like it's straight to streaming. There's just like a new straight to video feel that some of these HBO Max, Netflix originals have. And to know that this was a Robert Zemeckis movie was even more disheartening because effects looked cheap and just it felt small and low budget and just not worth someone of that stature. So overall, I was not a fan of this film, but I didn't want to review it and just tear apart because I thought it was harmless. My kids enjoyed it for an hour and a half, and we moved on. But then I saw this today. Saw this headline today that Warner Brothers had to apologize after The Witches sparked backlash from people with disabilities. And I sat there for a second like, what? What are they talking about? Disability? How? What? And then it goes on to reveal, it's because Warner Bros. Had to apologize for criticized by people with disabilities over the depiction of Anne Hathaway's character in The Witches. So they portray her as a character with these claw fingers. Now, it's important to go back to, here it is. It's important to in the book, there's sort of a way to recognize a witch, okay? That's what they talk about, and they do it in the movie as well. You recognize it because claws are hidden by gloves. They have a peculiar nose, bald head with wig rash, sinister handbag, square feet with no toes, blue spit. And if you go look at the toes here, it's like, there's clearly some sort of like, I don't know, it's a webbing toe or a claw there is what it seems like. And then you even go here in the mouth, sort of a little bit like something different. So the film decided to sort of do their own version of it. And as you see here in the picture, they give her these Joker-esque scars to make her jawline crazier. And they give her these huge teeth, like she's a snake almost. Just insanely, probably the grossest thing about her is the wig rash, without a doubt. And she's this monster. She's not a human being in any shape or form. She also elongates her arms in several scenes to prove that her fingers are also way longer than normal fingers. And she can sort of move her things around as well as fly because she's not a human. She's a monster witch creature. She's a creature. Let's use that. She's absolutely a creature in this film. The snake comes alive. All this stuff happens because she's not a human being. She's a creature witch. And so the fact that they had these limb differences, as these critics are calling it, was what caused this problem. So I was like, just confused, trying to figure out what was going on. And so here was Amy Martin sort of spread this around. Again, not to a lot of people, mind you, a very small community. Warner Brothers, was there much thought given to how this representation of limb differences would affect the limb difference community? Now, I know people, disabled people who have different limbs, and they don't. I asked, they hadn't heard of the limb difference community. That's not something that it's referred to as. Just so we're clear. So this was a new terminology for me and for them. But Here's what she said. Disappointed in the new Warner Brothers film, The Witches. I myself am a huge advocate of celebrating differences, and especially limb differences. It's not unusual for surgeons to try and build hands like this for children, adults with certain limb differences, and it's upsetting to something that makes a person different being represented as something scary. Yes, I'm aware it's a movie. It's a film, and these are witches, but witches are essentially monsters. My fear is that children will watch this film unaware that it massively exaggerates the Roald Dahl original and that limb differences begin to be feared. This opens up a whole new difficult conversation for those with limb differences and sets back what we are trying to achieve, which is celebrate who you are. Okay. There's much more to this. There's several other complaints here. This was one here. Limb difference is not scary. Differences should be celebrated, and disability has to be normalized, not a witch. And then there's several. Community upset over this kid-friendly film has been overwhelming. Deliberate choice to make Anne Hathaway's character in the new film Witches. Limb difference is efforts to make her more creepy and sinister is upsetting. Again, very small community of people who are offended. To be real, okay. 68 likes here. Okay, you got to factor that in. The biggest one here was from the Paralympic Games. I got about 500 people here. And I'm not trying to say this to discredit that community, but how many people are we upsetting here, really, is sort of an important thing to go. And when you really go to what's upset about this, I have problems here. Because, look, before I even get to my complaints, of course we should be safe to our kids. That's a parent's job, is to protect a kid. But the sad reality of our world is there are a lot of jerks in the world. A lot of jerks, right? And there's a lot of bullies, sadly, still. And the bullies are getting bigger, more and more bullies. Adults are being bullies. So many toxic people in this world, especially through social media and everywhere else, that to claim that you are going to be able to keep your kid from someone saying something wrong is just impossible. It's impossible. So for this person here to basically say, well, no, we should put all these kids in a bubble, and we shouldn't have any of these conversations. They will be unaware, and this opens up all new difficult conversations for those with limb differences. I mean, these are conversations that need to be had. For one, absolutely, you have to have your kid know, look, there are going to be jerks in the world who try to make fun of your difference. But you got to understand, they're just insecure and they're bullies, and you can't take that to heart. That doesn't make you different. What makes you is your heart and who you are and your soul. Have those conversations. They're going to need it. To put your kid in a bubble and just assume you can protect them and that a movie is going to be the thing that terrorizes them is so short-sighted and overprotective and honestly crazy to me. Like, that is not how we should be doing it as a society. If we keep just protecting and keeping away from the actual society they're going to have to someday grow up in and deal with, you got to toughen them up. You got to toughen them up. And the best instance I can think of that, if you guys have watched Cobra Kai, you guys know exactly where I'm going. But in the show Cobra Kai, which is the spin-off of Karate Kid, you have this character here who has this lip issue, right? And in the show, Sensei makes fun of it. And it's sort of, and it really upsets him. He cries and he leaves. But he gives him this sort of talk. If you got to do something to distract that, you got to get confident. People are going to make fun of it. So do something for it so they don't have to talk about it. And so what does he do? He comes back full mohawk, tattoos, everything, pure confidence, and owns it. He owns it. Becomes a person who's overcome. Now, he has his own issues in the film, in the show, and I get it. He's not the best character, not the spoiler, but the point of it is this is the truth of our society. Cobra Kai is right. Like, you can either live constantly as a sheltered victim and don't look, or you have to own it, right? You have to be confident. We have to teach kids confidence and to know not to be affected by these bullies. If we keep keeping them protected, it's going to be even worse for them when they finally leave the nest. I mean, it's shocking to me. That's my main point I want to really get across, because we have to be better. As I understand, parents are scared, and it's terrible that people would make fun of this. Any kid who has that problem, I would never, ever, ever look at that kid differently or try to make them feel differently, because I'm a good person, and good people shouldn't do that. But there are terrible people in this world, sadly. There's a lot of ignorant people in this world. you sadly just can't control it. And if you catch it, then you call those people out, right? And you go to their parents and call it out. But in the meanwhile, this movie isn't doing that, which is issue 2 I want to really bring up. This movie, she is a monster. She is a creature. She flies. She elongates her limbs and arms and everything. There is nothing human or regular about her character at all. And this idea that villains have to now be portrayed as what? Straight white men. So that's the only villains we'll accept. It's really what it sort of feels like today. It's like, oh, how dare if it's a racial thing or there's so many things now that's like, well, you can't make them the villains in today's society. You can't make German terrorists anymore. How dare you? You can't, that's not allowed. You can't have Muslim terrorists anymore. Everything is just like, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have that. I mean, what's it kind of come down to? I mean, Captain Hook is a bad guy with a hook because he's a pirate. So now should we put a disclaimer to people who have mechanical hands? Is Darth Vader now also? How dare Darth Vader? What's going on? Darth Vader is also a limb different, correct? And he's a monster. He's a total monster. He's a killer. Should we put a disclaimer on that movie next? I mean, where is the line here if we start doing this? We've become so sensitive as a community that every group has to be vocal because they have a social media account. How dare you let me make a choice whether I show my children this? How dare you, HBO Max? You should apologize. And then, sadly, guys, HBO had to apologize. That's what it comes down to because 300 people complained in a community that they don't want to seem like they're annoying, they're discrediting, and so they have to do what they have to do. But to their credit, they do a little bit of clapback in the apology. So here it was. We are deeply saddened to learn that our depiction of the fictional characters in The Witches could upset people with disabilities. In adapting the original story, we worked with designers and artists to come up with a new interpretation of the cat-like claws that are described in the book. The statement reads, "It was never the intention for viewers to feel that the fantastical, non-human creatures were meant to represent them." I mean, I don't like that they apologize, but I like that they're clapping back as like, guys, stop reading more into it than it was meant to be. The film is about the power of kindness and friendship. It is our hope that families and children can enjoy the film and embrace this empowering, love-filled theme, which is so imperative too because, spoiler alert for The Witches, if you've never read the book or seen it, the kids end up becoming mice and live as mice. They literally give up their human form to be mice. And it's like we're cool with it. We're going to go teach other kids. We're going to go be normal and confident and do what we need to do. It is like the most pro body image movie I can think of. It was so strange. I was like, by the end of the movie, I'm like, they're going to be mice now? And they're growing old as mice, stopping witches? Like, okay. It was so weird, but okay. If you're going to talk about a movie that's trying to teach what you're preaching, this movie does it. This movie at no point belittles or ridicules Anne Hathaway's disabilities because they're not. They're kind of cool. They look cool and she's like trying to get. I never once thought, ooh. And I asked my kids, nor did they. They were more scared by the teeth, like the snake-like teeth than the hands. But what happens is these parents who, look, I feel for, I understand that these kids do get bullied and I hate it. But these parents are so protective and so sensitive. And now on social media, they can be vocal. And if 300 of them complain, well, we got to do something about it. All right, fine. But to their credit, that's all they did. They put out the statement and put it out there. And their statement, I think, at least pushes back to be like, guys, what are we talking about? What is this? What is this? There are difficult conversations that absolutely need to be had here, Amy, is the reality here. And I'm not saying this to belittle you. I believe it's tough for kids with this split hand and things that they're talking about here. And we definitely should have a real conversation of, yeah, of course, don't ever give any kid with any difference anything other than love and support. That's what that should be always the message. And tell me how this movie didn't do that. Tell me. You are just jumping to a conclusion to tear something down because you don't want to control what your kids watch. You, as a parent, have the choice whether to put that movie on or not. And then when that kid is an adult, they have the choice whether they want to watch that movie or not. That's how it works as a parent. Stop overly protecting your children to then affect everyone else's children. I, as a parent, if I had a child with limb difference, I might want to have those difficult conversations more often than you do. And that's what the beauty of civilization is, right? Choice, freedom, stuff that we can do here in America, that it's like, yeah, we should have the right to make up our own minds. And just because you're offended by it doesn't mean that was their intent. Welcome to the world we live in. What can you do? And I'm more progressive than most. And as a parent, I'm very, I see the side of what they're frustrated by. But guys, I got to slap some sense back of like, what are you doing? This isn't the way. There are messages you could have put out there that would have been a less aggressive and less insistent, less mob-like of take this down. We need more than this apology. The apology wasn't enough. They were already frustrated. How dare HBO Max not take more effort? We wanted disclaimers on the film. Do you want disclaimers on Captain Hook and Star Wars as well? Is that where we're at now? I mean, where's the line? What are we going to do? What do you think of this? Am I over crazy on this one? Am I reacting weirdly? I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can also hit me up on social media if you ever got a topic like this. Don't be afraid to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that all alerts and smash that like button. And make sure to check out these other videos in the meanwhile. Thank you so much for watching here on Popcorn Planet. Bow, wow, wow.